I'm Tom Barrett, and it's Tuesday, January the 15th, 2013, and we're in the parlor at Mackin House, and I'm talking to Frank Bull.
So we had friends here who had moved into the mobile home park down the street at Mill Creek, and we came to visit them. My wife was quite taken with their mobile, and so we had designed one and put it on the lot. At that time, there wasn't too much in the park. I guess there were only about maybe 10, 12 mobile homes. Of course, now there are 167. So, or is it 176? One or the other. In any event, we've been there for the last 28 years, or at least my wife was, for 23 of them. In any event, it's a great park. It's quiet. Very little activity in there in terms, nobody's been shooting anybody recently, or robberies are minimal. Of course, when we moved in, the whole area was entirely different than it is today. The city hall was, of course, right across the street from us, so I could just walk up there and pay my taxes. Now I got to pay postage to get them there, or go visit City Hall, one or the other. And of course, the surrounding area now is fantastic. I mean, there's now a Superstore, there's a Staples, there's a Canadian Tire, about 6, well, more than that, probably 12 different restaurants that you can visit. We now have a cinema, of course. We have a, what else are we close by now? Bowling alley, and of course IKEA right across the street. All the things that are going along United Boulevard. The development has been fantastic. It just boggles my mind how much it's grown since we've been here. So actually, after we moved in, got settled in, and I was very interested in playing tennis. I'd played tennis in Burnaby all of my life. So I was looking for a tennis club. So as it turned out, the one that was closest was Dogwood Pavilion, which in those years was called a senior center, but seniors obviously is a bad word these days, so we now call it a 50-plus center. And I joined up there and of course played tennis with the group. In the meantime, my wife and I were doing a lot of traveling, seeing the world and all that sort of thing. In between times, I spent time up at Dogwood, and the second year I was there, someone inadvertently elected me as a sports director on the board. I wasn't too sure about that, but in any event, I did join the board. And actually now I've been on the board for 26 years, twice as president, and it's probably the best senior center, 50-plus center in BC. Fantastic place. The camaraderie is perfect. It's my second home. I spent a lot of time out there. Very great people. 135 different activities that we can get involved in. You name it, and we probably have it. If we haven't got it, we'll certainly look into doing it. So that part of it is great. Other than that, of course, the rest of the Coquitlam has grown up to a fantastic amount. Where Dogwood Pavilion is now, there was nothing much other there than the school, of course, which is across the street. Now we have a great big sports center. We have an aqua center, and they are now in the throes, I think, possibly, of coming up with a gymnasium, which would be certainly well used if we could get one in that neighborhood. And I'm trying to promote that. In any event, it's quite a change. In fact, all of Coquitlam has grown fantastically over the years. We have a sister organization, of course, with Glen Pine, which is over right near Coquitlam Center. And they have been building up their attendance as well. We currently have 2,500 members, so it's it keeps us busy, keeping them occupied one way and the other. I don't know there's too much more that I can discuss as far as Coquitlam is concerned. I think it's a great place to live. It has some faults, I must admit. The road traffic has certainly changed over the years, and unfortunately, you can't travel too easily from east to west or vice versa because of minimum number of roads that you can use that go right through. What's the infrastructure? I mean, they should have taken maybe a better look at that. However, that's their problem. In the meantime, I certainly enjoyed living in Coquitlam. I think they've done a good job of keeping taxes to the best they can. Of course, Lou Sikora is not mayor anymore, so he doesn't have much control over the tax level, although he'd like to have. However, maybe you should edit that one. Other than that, if you have any questions, I think I've just about talked myself out of words at the moment.
Okay, well, you mentioned the city hall being across the road there. What was the rest of the neighborhood like around here?
The
When
neighborhood?
you first came here, yeah.
Oh, well, it was actually, there wasn't too much. I mean, of course, Mackin House was here. The park was, of course, there, but there wasn't much in the park in those days. 2 tennis courts, and most of the rest was just a playground or sports field, if you will. Now, of course, they've expanded on it quite a bit. And some of it seems to be used quite well, especially the, what do they call them, skateboarders.
Oh, yeah.
Actually, I'm not very comfortable on those. I tried it once and almost broke my neck. So I gave up on that one. The other areas around here, of course, Millardville, for years have been trying to improve on their section and their hall, which is certainly not big enough to accommodate the number of people they have now. And of course, they would like to see the French language used a little more than it is currently. I'm not very conversant in French, but even though I know a lot of the people that are in Millardville, and that whole area, of course, has grown up a lot along the street too, with restaurants and banks and credit unions and you name it, we have everything you could want, pretty much. Farther up, of course, when you go up to Austin, it hasn't changed a great deal, of course. Most of the places are relatively small, 2- or 3-story buildings. The new hotel is going to be quite something, I guess. Of course, they chopped it down from 25 stories to, I think it's now 16. The only thing I worry about there is the traffic problem, and getting in and out of that is going to be a bit of a problem for everybody, as I can see. And I was on a committee that looked into everything regarding the Austin Heights area, as to how it could be expanded and what we should do to improve on it and so forth and so on. And I think it was about a 30-page report or something along those lines. I haven't noticed that too much of it's been implemented lately. So I don't know where they'll go from there. Other than that, there hasn't been a lot of change farther to the east, I guess. Hasn't changed a great deal. The places that were there before are still there to a large extent, other than the bowling alley, of course, which is new, and the small restaurants that are along there. But the other side of the street is pretty much industrial. And firms that were there then still seem to be going strong. Well, no, we do have, of course, on the corner, it's been built up quite a bit with restaurants and clubs, et cetera, et cetera. Yeah. All in all, quite quite some changes over the years. All to the good, I'm assuming.
When you first moved here, where would you go for shopping?
Pretty well up to Safeway, which was one of the, well, of course, they're going to build a new Safeway now, too. I presume you knew about that, up on Austin.
I'd heard.
Yeah, they're going to tear down the old
suggestions.
one and they put up a brand new one, bigger, I presume. But that's where we did most of our shopping at that particular time. Superstore wasn't there until a little later. When they came in, of course, it was much closer and much more convenient. So, shop there. And pretty well everything you would want in terms of amenities is within a 5-minute drive from where where I live anyway. If you want, you can always go down United Boulevard, and if you can't find it there, you're out of luck. So, what else would you like to discuss?
How did you like living in a mobile home park? Was it a change from being in I guess you're in a single family home before?
Yeah, I had, well, the one we had in Burnaby, I had built. I didn't build it myself, although then it was when I had some family. Of course, it required enlarging, so we built annexes on it and built out Sendex and all that sort of stuff, double carports, you name it. But moving into a mobile home wasn't that much different. I have 1,600 square feet, which is not a bad area. I've got a good big patio in the back, plus a lawn, plus a garden, and of course some grass in the front that has to be treated as well, and beds along the side. It's a lot of work to keep it up. I think I'm going to hire a housekeeper. I don't know. I find that vacuuming is a little hard on the back these days. Possibly because I'm not as young as I used to be.
Possibly.
Yeah. Well, as a matter of fact, I have a birthday this month, and I hit the big 90, so quite an affair. I'm trying to avoid it. But you can't avoid it, I'm afraid. It just keeps up on you.
Do you have any plans for celebrating it?
My daughters have. You know, I'm trying to keep it to a minimum. Yeah, I was trying to get out of town, actually. I thought I'd go on a cruise and get away from it all. But it wasn't to be, so yeah, they're organizing the family. And of course now it's certainly expanded. I had 2 daughters, wound up with 7 grandchildren. I now have 9 great-grandchildren. So it's expanded family.
Really?
Yeah.
Did the daughters grow up at the trailer park, Mill Creek?
No. No, they all married while we were still in Burnaby.
Okay.
So they didn't move into Coquitlam with us. They had their own homes, their own families, and so forth. In fact, they're directly responsible for all the grandkids I've certainly currently got. So, yeah, it was about it. I know you like to talk primarily about Coquitlam, so I won't dwell on any time in terms of Vancouver and that area, which has also grown fantastically since I lived there. Quite a change. I like the new developments we have. I think the Coquitlam Center is, well, it's an interesting area, but there's too much in the way of growth, not enough in the way of infrastructure. So, mind you, the new line we have going in, I guess, will help the cause to some extent.
You mentioned how large was the mobile home park at Mill Creek when you first moved there?
Well, the area was the same. I mean, they haven't expanded on the area, just the number of mobile homes. Of course, when I moved in, there were maybe a dozen, 14. Now there are 176. And they're well kept in general. One or two, of course, that we like to see improved. But they do a walk around twice a year, and if the tenants aren't keeping their places up, they tell them they better get cracking and get them up to par, which is good. Of course, that particular area, well, at one time, of course, it was strictly a mud hole. Actually, I mean, when they were doing the lumbering and logging in that section, it was. I've seen pictures of, and I'm sure you have too. There have been some of the old pictorials of Coquitlam, and it was a mud hole. Other than the fact they had boardwalks going from place to place, and of course that's where the mobile home park is now. Behind us at that particular time, or to the north, well, in this case, just the south of here, that was all bush prior to them putting in all the buildings they have in there now. So there's quite a change there as well. But they're no problem. I mean, I live in the far north end of the park, which is right adjacent, of course, to the new buildings they put up for the tenants there. But it's no problem. They're, other than the fact they've had to recondition a lot of their buildings recently, and I'm sure the tenants are not happy with that. So, yeah, what else would you like to know?
Well, that's a real boom, going from a couple of dozen units to more than 100, like you say. What was that like? Did it all happen at once?
Oh no, it happened over a lot of years. I think the park has been there for 30 years, I guess. At least it was started 30 years ago, and then the mobile started coming in, and you had an option. You could either bring in a new mobile, build one or have one built for yourself to your own specifications. It could be a single wide, a double wide, and it just kept growing and growing and growing. So now, of course, it's completely full. There's no room for any new ones, although we do get some people moving out, and sometimes the mobile goes out with them and a new one comes in, which is an improvement, of course. But yeah, it's a good park. It's quiet. It's pretty well crime-free. Could stand a little more amenities. We have a small clubhouse, of course. I'd like to see a bigger one. We don't have a swimming pool. We don't have tennis courts. Of course, I can go across the road here to tennis courts, so no problem there. And I can't swim where there aren't anyway, so no great loss. But yeah, it's comfortable living, and the beauty of it is that your neighbors aren't. You're not touching your neighbors. They're not that close. There's room between the places, so you're pretty well on your own. And if you want to get together with your neighbors, that's fine. If you don't, you can do what you want. Don't ignore them. Whatever you feel like you want to do, which is good. So it's yeah, been a great place to live.
Yeah, you mentioned going across to play tennis. Do you still play tennis?
Yeah, I play in the bubble up at just behind our pavilion. Our group isn't what it used to be, of course. We have aged a little. And I played tennis. I started playing tennis when I was 13, 14. And my dad had a friend who gave me a tennis racket, which the grip was so big I couldn't get my hand around it, but that's beside the point. And the tennis balls we were using in those days, of course, had no fluff left on them. They were just black. If you hit them with any speed, they'd go right over the fence. But yeah, I still play, only doubles. I've given up playing singles. Played in the senior games for a lot of years. Wherever they went, I guess was in various competitives there for, oh, maybe 19 years in various places in BC. Won a few, lost a few. I don't mention the ones I lost. But and I still enjoy playing. Of course, it's a great sport. Well, I'm a firm believer in sports anyway. I think I'm in relatively good shape for a 90-year-old. And I think the way to stay in good shape is to keep active both mentally and physically. And so far it's worked for me, so I'm not complaining. Well, actually, no, I have no point in complaining anyway. Nobody listens.
Tell me a bit more about the senior games. How often are they held?
Once a year. Mm-hmm. Yep.
Different places around the province?
All over the province. Yeah, as far up as Dawson Creek, the island. We've had it twice in Burnaby, once in Coquitlam, and yeah, all over. It's and they still draw quite a crowd. I don't think it's as big as it used to be in terms of the number of people that are participating, but when I was participating more actively, there were literally hundreds of participants in every sport you can think of. Not just tennis, of course, there was everything else involved as well. Even swimming. Of course, they had to have a pool for that, but not quite up to the standards of our pool, which is quite something. Although I'm not a swimmer, I like to watch them. And as far as the tennis is concerned, yeah, as long as I can hit a ball, I'll be out there playing. And of course, busy watching the Australian Open now.
Oh yes, yeah.
I have my favorites, of course. I like the old timers like Federer. Of course, he's an old timer. He's 30, getting on in years now.
You mentioned the Dogwood Center had 135 different activities?
I'm sorry?
You mentioned that the Dogwood Center, 135 different activities?
If you can think of one we haven't got, I'd like to hear it, quite frankly. I mean, we have bus trips, we have dances, we have exercise rooms, we have a woodworking shop that's fantastic. We have a computer group that teach you everything you want to know about computers. We have a crafts room. We have our own kitchen, make our own foods there. If you ever get up there, I'd highly recommend the soup. I picked up some of their curried beef today. Just delicious. Yeah, it's a very active center. And I don't know, I can't think of anything. We have about 6 different exercise groups, from people who are pretty much confined to wheelchairs, and a lot of service groups as well, Red Hatters as well, and people for the blind, and you name it, we have all of that. I think we have, at last count, I think 14 service organizations as well. A big bunch of hostesses that help a great deal as well. Over 400 volunteers that help whenever necessary. And if you'll pardon me for a minute, I'm going to have to cough.
Oh, go right ahead.
Picked up a bit of a cold. I don't know where you can pick them up these days. I've missed the flu so far. Been lucky. But yeah, it's a great center, and I never object to talking about it, because I think it's my home away from home, actually, especially since my wife passed away. It made a big difference, and now I spend even more time there than I spent before. So I don't care if it's Dogwood Center or whether it's Glen Pine, or I don't care what center it is. A place where you can get involved and keep busy. That's what makes a difference. And we have people that, well, I'm now in a bracket we're called super seniors if you're over 85. And you get some certain benefits. Mind you, I keep asking for a senior's discount up there, and of course, get sneered at, but anyway, yeah, I think we had a gal that, I think she's still playing snooker. She was 93, and she was still going to the senior games. Of course, the problem when you get a little older and going to the senior games, you can't find enough competitors in that age bracket. So the last few years when I was playing tennis, and of course I was in my 80s, at the senior games, well, there was nobody else in their 80s to play against, so I had to play against people that are in their 50s, 60s, which I thought was a bit unfair. I figured they should give me at least 3 games out of every set. Didn't go. Yeah. So what else would you like to discuss?
So you said you were president of the Dogwood Center twice. What did that involve? What went into being president?
Well, our advisory board has 12 people, and some of them are, well, 5 of them are directors. They represent their various activities within the center. Then we have first vice president, second vice president, the treasurer, of course, and a president. And you sort of work your way up through the ranks. You could start as being a director, maybe in some other capacity, member at large for something, and you move up the ranks to, say, second VP, and then to first VP, and then president, assuming you get elected. And of course, you can only have a 2-year term, as in any one position. You have to be elected on a yearly basis. It's not overly competitive. We'd like to see a lot more young people getting involved. Unfortunately, the younger people seem to be more inclined to pick a particular thing they want to enjoy. I don't care whether it's table tennis or maybe one of the exercises or a dance class or whatever you want. They come up and they do their thing and they leave. And they don't have the involvement that we'd like to see in terms of getting involved in how the place works. We get good support from the city, very good support. And I get to know them all very well, which I don't know if it helps any, but at least on a first name basis with the mayor and all the council. And of course, Finn Donnelly's an old friend, and Diane, who's of course retiring. So it's constantly changing. And 2 of course, of the council have decided they're going in other directions, which is their choice. And I don't blame them for moving up in the ranks if they can. Why not?
Did you ever think about getting involved in politics yourself?
I did. Give it a lot of thought at one time, quite a number of years ago. But decided it really wasn't for me. It's, I don't know, you have to be in politics for a long time to make any impact, I find, especially at the higher levels of government, not so much so, let's say, in council here in the community, but certainly if you want to move up into, say, an MLA position and wind up going to Ottawa, for example, and I know that Finn does a great job for us there. But you get people, of course, that have been in Ottawa for longer than they can remember, and they know all the rules and all the regulations, and It's tough. And of course, the fact that you have to be elected every third or fourth year, well, here it's 2 or 3, I should say. Yeah, you don't know how long that position is going to last. You've got to have something to fall back on. If you don't get elected, what do you do then? So no, I didn't think it was my cup of tea.
Were there any sort of civic issues you were particularly interested in?
Well, you mean in terms of politics?
Yeah, in terms of getting involved, you mentioned that you were interested at one time. I just wondering if there was something that kind of drew you into that.
Yeah, I guess it's, well, housing for one thing, of course, and the homeless, and that's a big issue that needs an awful lot of attention. The way the money is spent, I think, is an important factor for a politician. Certainly it's important for people that are paying the taxes. I think that's a major concern, to make sure that the money is well used and goes to the right places, which doesn't always happen. Sometimes there are some questions about exactly where the money is spent. Of course, there's some questions, even currently, I suppose, about our brand new bridge that raises the odd question. I haven't heard of any icicles falling recently, but and I don't know that the traffic, certainly the traffic across the bridge has improved. The problem is that once you get off the bridge, whether you're going east or west, you run into the same problem. There's only so much infrastructure, there's only so much ways, and only so many places you can go. Once you get off the bridge, you're on your own. But it's very impressive structure, there's no question about it. They say it's the widest bridge, I don't know, in North America or the world.
Yeah.
It's certainly a great structure. Yeah. I haven't been on it yet. I still go over the old Patullo,
Oh, yeah.
which has been there longer than I have.
Yeah, I'm just wondering, what's the biggest changes you've seen in sort of looking back on your whole life?
Well, that's a toughie, because my life was a bit fragmented, I guess. I went through the Depression years, which were certainly difficult years for everybody in all of BC. And then, of course, the war years came along, and that took up 5 years of my life as well. So, yeah, I've seen a few changes during those years. Everything has pretty well changed in terms of the city itself. Used to have to take a ferry across at one time. Of course, the only place was the old Second Narrows Bridge, which was a railway bridge, actually. And yeah, there have some big changes in terms of the size of the city and what's happening. Unfortunately, we haven't resolved all of the issues that go along with a big city. And I think it's pretty sad, for example, that the homeless people have been turned away because we haven't got enough beds for them. I think that's a shame. I'm not sure that we can solve that all at once. It's not easy, however. And of course, even locally now, we have casinos coming up all over the place, which makes an interesting thing. I guess we shouldn't complain. We draw a certain amount of revenue from them every year. Unfortunately, a lot of people lose their life savings on occasion as well, which I guess we benefit from, which is a shame. But I guess that's life. So anything else you have in mind?
What about changes in technology? Do you remember your first TV and that sort of thing?
Well, that's fantastic. I think the the growth in those industries is just phenomenal. I mean, now you can't even keep up with Facebook, for example. I mean, there's so many things that going on in that particular field that is just absolutely unreal. TV-wise, of course, I can remember our first TV, which was an oval TV, and I've forgotten how big it was. It certainly was only about maybe 12 inches across or 14 at the best. Now, of course, you've got fantastic sized TVs that take up this whole wall if you want. That in itself is quite something, and even our cameraman here will certainly agree that the change in cameras has just been unreal. I used to load my own film at one time, buy it in bulk, and of course they were all shutter cameras, and not the same as we have today. They're totally different, the digital cameras and the whole bit. And now it depends on how many megapixels you can get. I mean, they've gone from 0 to, I've forgotten, the latest is 18. Or would you go for 20? I don't know. I see the cameraman is grinning at me here. He's probably got an opinion on that one. But, and I used to, well, when I went through traveling with Governor General Alexander, I had an old Bolex, which is a 3-turret. And if you wanted a close-up, you had to change the turret. If you wanted a wide angle, you had to change the turret. Now, of course, it automatically does that all by itself. It's, the technology has just gone, I wonder if it's going too fast sometimes. I mean, you just can't keep up with it. Even in television, I mean, yeah. If you got Windows 7, that's okay, but Windows 8's now on the market. So, you know, what are you going to do? Trying to keep up with it all is out of this world. And I don't know. The young people these days seem to be so busy texting each other. They don't have time for a conversation on the phone or a conversation with an individual. They're just busy telexing here and telexing there, and it's quite different. It's hard to keep up with it all from the way it was many years ago, when all we had was radio. Television wasn't even thought of at the time. So, yeah, fantastic changes. I try to keep up with them in a minimal way. I know how to work a computer. Although I'm having trouble at the moment with my printer. So if you know anything about printing, I could use you.
Can't help you there, I'm afraid.
No. Mm-hmm. Other than that?
You mentioned Facebook. Are you on Facebook?
No. But we're, at the moment, we're talking very seriously at Dogwood about getting our own website. We're on the city website. Maybe not to the extent we'd like to be. We'd like to have a little more coverage on it. So we're thinking very seriously of setting up our own website. And the biggest problem is it has the only things that you can set up on a website, as far as we're concerned anyway, are things that don't require a daily updating, such as time, date, that sort of thing. And finding anybody or finding enough people that are willing to do that on a daily basis is a little difficult. So our website will be primarily on activities and functions and other things that we can offer that don't have to be updated on a daily basis. That we can just refer them to, for example, if they're interested in drama, they think they could be an actor or an actress, and maybe they've never tried it out. So we'll put a blurb in the website that suggests if you think you have any aspirations in that way, then by all means give us a phone call, and we'll give them a phone call and try to introduce them to the drama club or the songsters or whatever they have in mind. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
How many of the seniors at the center are online, use computers a lot?
Way more than we thought initially.
Really?
And I was quite surprised because I go to most of the new members' tea. We have a new members' tea there all the time. Introduce the members, take them around and show them everything that we have going and so forth and so on. And I quite often, recently I always ask the question is, how did you come to learn about dogwood? And I'm amazed at how many people have found it on the internet just by going into the city website, which is why we're looking at our own website, because more and more people, and of course we're trying to induce more people. I mean, there's 50 plus, and our interest is getting the people that are between the 50 and 65 range, for example, to come in and get involved. We have, I would guess that a very large percentage of our members are in the 60, 65 plus age levels, and you know, they unfortunately, we never all last forever. Sooner or later you wind up with a disability or something of that sort, and you have to discontinue it. So we need new growth, which we'd like to see more of. Mm-hmm.
Well, it sounds like it's doing pretty well. How many of those 135 activities have you sort of been involved in yourself?
Would you give me that one again?
Just wondering, you mentioned the 135 different activities at Dogwood. Mm-hmm. How many of those have you been involved in yourself?
Myself?
Yeah.
Well, let's see, I've gone to dance classes, I've gone to exercise classes, I've taken computer courses, I've taken the crafts, been in the crafts room, done some woodworking, played table tennis, tennis of course. Let me think, what else? Lapidary. I'm trying to think of all the things I have.
You're a busy guy.
Yeah, well, I've tried a lot of them. I tried the exercise. Well, I exercise myself at home. And of course I play tennis, so I do get a fair amount of exercising. But I thought, well, maybe I could get some more, and I'll join one of the exercise classes, which I did, about a month ago, I guess. Unfortunately, for me at least, the course started off the middle of last year. So they have a routine. And the exercises are great, no question about that. But they have a routine, like they take 3 steps forward and they do such and such, and they take 3 steps backwards, and then they do 3 steps this side and 3 steps that side, or a certain amount of movement with the arms, and then the arm. I mean, there's a routine. Well, that's fine if you've been going there all the time. The problem is if you haven't, you find they're coming back and you're going forward. They're going left and you're going right. It became very awkward. But yeah, I was trying to think of what else I've been involved in there. I haven't missed too many. They've taught me a lot. I've learned a lot about woodworking, learned a lot of crafts, make your own chairs, with the webbing and so forth and so on, which was in the vogue at that particular time. Matter of fact, I even made some doilies, for God's sake. I mean, you can learn almost anything you want to if you want to take a crack at it anyway. Mm-hmm.
What are the most popular programs?
Most popular? Ooh, in terms of the number of people, I would say bridge, strangely enough, but we have, I'm not sure whether it's 3 or 4 levels of bridge anyway, from beginners up to experts. And they get a fantastic turnout for those. Secondly, I guess the exercise classes. They are always full. More so by our female members than by our males. There aren't, the males seem to be more preoccupied in other activities, shall we say. They're out playing slow pitch, or we could have our own indoor hockey. which is only once a week, and we don't really have the room for it, but we do it anyway. We'd like to have a gym. Other than that, let's see, what would be the bus trips, of course, are just loaded every time. We quite often have to order another bus because we get an overflow. And we have at least, currently I think we have about 10 bus trips all scheduled for the next month.
Where to?
All over the place. Yeah, we go to plays, we go to places of interest that have some historical significance. We go over to, the heck is that place anyway? I was trying to think of, well, the Grandview District, of course. They have tours over there and visit the Italian restaurants and all that sort of stuff. And some trips that are much longer, of course, up into the interior and so forth and so on, and some that go across the line and to casinos and that sort of thing, and to casinos as well, and to horse racing, and yeah, lots of activities as far as that's concerned. The dance classes are very popular. We got all sorts of those, you name it, and you can learn it. Even belly dancing, if you're so inclined. Never tried that one.
Yeah. Is there much interest in that, in the belly dancing?
No men. Fortunately. I don't know that it went over that well. I think we only ran it for a couple of years, and then there wasn't enough interest to continue it, so we gave that one up. But people are always wanting to learn the latest steps in the tango and the rumba and the cha-cha and so forth and so on. And we used to have dances every month with a live band. We weren't getting the attendance for a variety of reasons, I guess. Some of our older members who loved to dance were dying off, and it was the old music. We were talking about 40s music as compared to, you know, getting the more current or the 70s music, which is more in vogue. Most of the old timers, like myself included, like to do the old standard dances like a foxtrot and a waltz, and et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, where you actually have a companion and you dance with them. You don't stand apart from each other and gyrate, shall we say. There's quite a difference in the dancing styles now. So we have to adapt accordingly. So, anything else of interest that you'd like to?
5 minutes.
How much we got?
We're close to our 5 minutes.
Yeah.
You mean I've been talking that long? My God.
Oh, that's great. Unless there's anything else you want to add.
I can't think of a great deal. I must say, for final comments, I guess, I love living in Coquitlam. I love the city, and I think overall our mayor and council are doing a quite an acceptable job. The growth is phenomenal. I mean, everywhere you look around, of course, things are going up. So, yeah, I've found that I enjoy being here, and I don't plan on moving, not the near future. Although I may have to give some thought, looking after 1,600 square feet of house on my own, plus the garden, plus I put in about, anywhere between 400 and 500 tulips and daffodils every year, so I keep busy. But I'm giving up a little at a time. I'm figuring, okay, I don't climb up on the roof and fix it anymore. And my Christmas lights now are no farther than ceiling height.
Well, that's great. Well, thank you so much for your time, and thank you for coming out to talk to us.
Well, I hope I talked enough. I felt like I talked enough anyway.